Tomorrow, the Supreme Court will resume hearings on what to do with those 218 illegally granted coal blocks. Companies will argue that large-scale de-allocation will be disastrous. The petitioners who have won this case so far will argue that the impact is not that big and it's well worth the clean-up effort in India's natural resource sector. Who will prevail? Let's get both sides for you this afternoon. SUDIEP Srivastava, petitioner in the coal block case, and we also have, from an industry point of view, MISHRA, Senior Director at Deloitte, to talk us through this. Debashish, I'm in fact going to give the first answer to you. If you could articulate for us what you think the impact will be on the economy, the corporate sector and individual companies if the Supreme Court were to decide tomorrow or in a subsequent hearing that there should be a full-scale deallocation of all the allocated blocks.
So if there is complete deallocation of all the allocated blocks, then you are talking about 218 blocks which were allocated, 216 for coal, for power, cement, steel and all, and 2 were coal to liquid projects. So out
some of those, some of those have already been deallocated. So let's not stick to the final figure. I'm saying it's somewhere in the region of 170 to 180 allocations. What if all of those are deallocated tomorrow or any subsequent day?
So, you know, our earlier estimates were there were 30 mines which were already operating and 40 million ton was the production. As per the last submission of government in the Supreme Court, they are talking about 40 are operational mines. I don't know the exact number, what is the production going on right now. But if you look at the 46 mines that government is talking about getting an exemption, we are probably talking about 60-70 million tons of coal.
Okay, but in terms of economic impact, have you worked out any numbers?
So, you know, back of the envelope calculation says that, you know, 60-70 million tons of coal can support around 14 gigawatt of power capacity.
But these are not operational power plants,
but ultimately, you know, no, there are many of the power plants which are already operational. There are projects which are having tapering linkages, who are managing from Coal India's tapering linkage, and they were hoping that they will have the production going in next 12 to 18 months, and that their own production would have taken over that.
So can you put it to us for us in terms of numbers? How much of India's current power demand is supplied by power plants that are supplied coal by these illegally allocated blocks? Do you have a number out there on what is the power at peril here?
So, you know, the whole, if I'm talking about 60-70 million tons of total production and take a rough around 80% which is supplied to power. So I'm talking about, you know, 8 to 10 gigawatt of capacity which is dependent on these sources.
Okay, which is a fraction of India's requirements on a regular basis?
So yeah, so we have a total installed capacity of 250 gigawatt, and we have a total peak demand of around 135 gigawatt. So you can say that, you know, 5-6%.
Okay, well, where would you stand? Okay, let me now take the debate to Sudeep. Sudeep, even if it's a fraction of India's power demand at this point in time, it's an important part of our economy. We can't afford to have power go offline. So how would you respond to the debate that any full-scale deallocation will have a deleterious impact on the Indian economy, on power production, and therefore the entire economy by extension?
First of all, out of these 218 blocks, 23 blocks were already deallocated prior to filing of this petition by the government itself.
Yeah.
So then remains 195 blocks in contention. During the course of hearing, around 40 odd blocks were also deallocated by interministerial group because of non-development, because of the project proponents failed to achieve the milestones as prescribed. And another 12 blocks which were allotted to UMPP are not affected by this judgment.
Right.
So the total number of blocks in contention dependent on the judgment of Supreme Court is around 140. Out of this 140 blocks, 40 blocks in production. they produce 46 million ton coal in 2013 and 14, which is less than 10% of the total coal CIL produced, and less than 5% of total, 7% of total coal India consumes during the last year. The impact on economy, while I am saying it, is not going to, in any negative terms. Only some adjustment would be required for the companies which are using captive coal blocks. First of all, we need to understand that de-allocation would not mean suspension of production. De-allocation would only mean the change of ownership. These blocks could be given to CIL for as an interim arrangement and could be auctioned subsequently. So the production is not going to be hampered. Government can also put, or Supreme Court can also put a condition that during this interim period, the supply to end-use projects dependent on these coal blocks would not be affected. Only the pricing has to be fixed.
How much will the pricing be affected by, SUDIEP? Because if we are talking about numbers going about, the total loss of $33 billion is what I think the CAG said.
But $33 billion is to the economy because of illegal allocation. So you're comparing a different number. Yeah, okay, SUDIEP, go ahead.
Let me. All total, as per the assessment committee report submitted by government itself during the course of hearing, they have stated only 5 to 6% of the total coal power generated is dependent on these coal blocks.
Okay.
So the remaining 94-95% coal power producers are getting coal from CIL on linkage route, that is on notified price, or a substantial, a small number of these power producers getting coal from import, as their projects have been envisaged on the imported coal. So the difference of Coal India price, which is hovering around 1,000 rupees a ton with regard to power grade coal, and the cost of mining in these coal blocks around 300-400 rupees a ton. So this difference they have to bear, and in my opinion, it will create a level playing field, in fact, because all these power producers, 6,000 power producers dependent on captive coal block, are not having any PPA, long-term PPA. They are selling power as a merchant power, like any other power plant. So there shouldn't be any privilege class. In fact, when the allotment has been declared illegal by Supreme Court.
Okay, so what you're saying, SUDIEP, if I was to sort of summarize that, you're saying that the difference right now between the cost of power for the end-use plant from such an illegally allocated block is about $500, because they're getting it at 500 rupees, whereas Coal India's linkage price is about 1,000 rupees a ton. So the difference is 500 rupees that the end-use plant stands to benefit by. And you're saying don't stop the power production, just hand over these operational mines to Coal India, let Coal India continue the production and oversee it, at least on an interim basis, and allow the coal supply to continue to these end-use plants wherever the end-use plant is up and running.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So what it will essentially mean is only an escalation in price for the end-use plant, because Coal India should then charge the linkage prices and not the lower prices.
This escalation will not go to consumer, because these power plants are not having any long-term PPA.
Got it. Yeah.
So there is no question of increasing price to the consumers. The only thing will happen that the some profit margin of the windfall margin, in fact, not profit margin, will come down.
Okay, let me put that to Debashish and see if he agrees with you. What do you think of a scenario if this is what were to develop as a solution, Debashish? Do you think it would be fair? The production of coal continues, the supply of coal continues to the end-use plant. What happens essentially is only that the cost to the end-use plant for this coal goes up.
So, first of all, I don't agree that these plants were selling only in the merchant route.
Okay.
In fact, Government of India had come out with a notification which says that unless they sell 85% of their capacity in the PPA market, which is in the long-term contract with a utility, which was that PPA should have been won through a competitively bid route, then there would be danger of de-allocation also. So I don't I don't think it's true that all these people were making money in the merchant market.
Okay.
And the other challenge is that the Coal India's weighted average cost is not right now 1,000 rupees. It is hovering around 1,400 rupees.
Okay. So you're saying that the difference in cost between what they're getting via these allocated mines and what they would pay if they were to pay a coal linkage price is more than double.
I would like to clarify these 2 points.
Yeah, Sudeep, we'll come to you in just a bit. Let's listen into Debashish.
So I'm saying that it's very difficult because mining costs cannot be benchmarked. There are mines, there are different stripping ratios. So there may be open cast mines with 300 rupees a ton production cost, and there would be mines with 1,200 rupees a ton production cost. And mind you, these are not some of the easiest of the mines to mine the coal from. So I would not agree with the number that it takes only 300 rupees to mine the coal from these mines.
Okay. So what would you suggest, Debashish, would be, like for instance, the government in the Supreme Court at the last hearing suggested a 219 rupee penalty of sorts per ton of coal to be sort of levied on those mines that are continuing, that have already gone into production and are supplying to end-use plants. Do you think that's a fairer price?
I don't know where that number is coming from, but I think government has to establish how they arrived at that number. That fairness would be probably established by the court. If that they establish it, as a fair price delta between what is the cost of production and what is the Coal India linkage price, so be it. I mean, that can be one of the solutions. Okay. One of the other solutions, what the gentleman suggested about CIL, I think CIL itself is struggling to mine its own mines. I think one of those interim solutions could be employ MDOs, mine developer cum operators, who can mine it from ready mines, who can supply to these end-use units.
Okay, so instead of CIL, hand it over on a temporary basis to NDOs. What is the best case scenario, Debashish, according to you, from an economic point of view, that could come out of these continuing hearings at the Supreme Court?
So one of the solutions which the Supreme Court has also agreed that the UMPP model is the right model, where the end consumer is also getting the benefit of the natural resources which the country has. So one solution could be some of these de-allocated blocks which are ready to go into production can be given to distribution utilities, and distribution utilities can immediately run a case 2 kind of a bid process where they ask for they're offering a PPA, and they can offer these coal blocks to people who can mine it and use it in their power plant. And when you have a competitively bid and tariff-based kind of a system, then the consumer gets the benefit of competition, and you get a much lower tariff than a case 1 kind of a bid.
Sudeep, you along with ML Sharma and Prashant Bhushan have argued or will continue to argue for full-scale de-allocation. Can you make your last argument on why that is the only acceptable resolution in this process?
I would like to clarify first that the 85% power purchase has to under PPA, the guidelines we cited, and this precise argument we have taken. But government in its affidavit has admitted that nobody is complying it, and we are not able to ensure this compliance.
Okay.
So all these power plants are basically acting as a merchant power plant and selling their entire power as merchant power, first thing. Second thing, this with regard to this mining cost, all these deposits are mostly, except two mines out of this 40 are open cast, and most of these deposits are surfacial deposit, that is 0 to 300 meter. So the cost of mining, when I am saying 300 rupees, is on the higher side, it's not on the lower side. Okay. And the price of coal, power grade coal, that is F grade coal, is 1,000 rupees and not 14,000 rupees as per the notification of CIL itself.
Okay.
And
final point, we've got just 30 seconds left, Sudeep, so you've got just 30 seconds to make your final argument.
So my argument is that this judgment is very clear. It has declared illegal all kind of JVs, all kind of MDOs, and only end use company can mine for itself. and that benefit has to be passed on to the public. So in the current scenario, since the already operating mine have already earned huge windfall gains, it's best way to deallocate all the coal blocks and start with a clean slate and go with the auction process or with the bidding process, the tariff bidding process.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to leave this there for now. We will hear more from the Supreme Court tomorrow. And let's see what the government's Attorney General argues, because the government says we have no position, but the Attorney General was arguing
was clearly saying that he wanted
protect 46 blocks. So let's see how that one goes.